Muslims desire freedom more than anyone else, because love for freedom, fraternity, and liberty is the lifeblood of their existence. But freedom must mean freedom both from the British exploitation and Hindu domination. 100 millions of Muslims will never agree merely to a change of masters.
The first Muslim kingdom was established when Muhammad bin Qasim landed near present-day Karachi and defeated the local ruler of the area, Raja Tahir, in 712 AD. Thus began the gradual but continuous process of conquest of the Indian subcontinent. With the passage of time, some of Islam's greatest Sufi saints such as Hazrat Ali Hajveri or Data Sahib, Nizamuddin Auliya, Bahauddin Zakaria and Moinuddin Chishti of Ajmer Sharif would inhabit this land and through their message of love and peace convert vast swaths of humanity in this region to Islam. Over time, one of the great empires in human history, the Mughal Empire, would come to be established here. This Mughal dynasty revolutionized concepts of administration, architecture and culture. At its peak, the Indian subcontinent's economy was far more advanced and wealthier than the Western world of that time. However, this golden period for Muslims in the subcontinent slowly started to wane and finally gave way completely to the dark ages when the British, through the infamous East India Company, took over the reins of power of the subcontinent. The people would soon become nothing but slaves of the British Empire in their own homeland. In 1857, the people of the subcontinent, under the last but by now utterly powerless Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar, rose up in revolt against their new British masters. The British were able to crush this revolt and thus began the darkest period for the Muslim people of the subcontinent. In this time of agony and pain, when all hope seemed to be lost, there would arise a savior, the Grey Wolf. An impressive-looking, poised, bold of manner, honest and eager on humanity, quick-witted and armed with charm, both practical and beaming with idealism, an incorruptible and brave man, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Born on 25th December 1876 in Karachi, Muhammad Ali Jinnah Bhai was the first of 7 children born to Jinnah Bhai Punja and Michi Bhai. Mahmud, as he was affectionately called at home, was small and weak as recalled by his ever-devoted sister Fatima. Feeble and languid, tall and stately, Muhammad Ali Jinnah's form was a mere deceptive cover hiding a spirit of exceptional vitality and endurance. He was enrolled in the Sindh Madrasatul Islam in 1887 and then later at Karachi's exclusive Christian Mission High School. The free-spirited Jinnah never stayed for long at either, but rather had a passion for writing and poetry. As a son of a prosperous businessman, his father wanted him to study arithmetic, a subject he loathed. In January 1893, at the tender age of 16, Jinnah, having gained the respect of Sir Frederick, general manager of Douglas Graham and Company, sailed to England on an apprenticeship at the company's home office in London to do more of what he hated, accounting. Stanley Wolpert, one of the world's foremost historians, in his seminal work on Jinnah wrote of the recommendation letter by Sir Frederick. That single letter to London lifted young Jinnah from provincial obscurity into the orbit of British imperial prominence, accessible at that time to fewer than 1 in a million Indians. But that's exactly what Jinnah was, 1 in a million. Jinnah soon realized this was not for him and despite much opposition decided to enroll at the Lincoln's Inn to study law. This very early on showed Jinnah's obstinate nature when it came to pursuing what he believed in. It is also here in London that his passion for politics originated, for he often frequented sessions of Westminster's House of Commons from the visitors' gallery. During his stay in England, Jinnah would lose both his mother and wife, Emmy Bai, who had spent many days with. Upon his return in 1896, Jinnah was the youngest Muslim barrister in the bustling city of Bombay. He very quickly rose up the ranks to become one of the most sought-after lawyers in the city and quickly gained the reputation of being one of the sharpest minds in the country. Jinnah was a pure artist in the manner and method of his presentation. Even the most complex facts became simple and obvious when he waved his wand over them. He could be ferociously aggressive and almost boyishly persuasive, as and when the occasion arose. And what particularly helped him in his advocacy was the absolute clear head that he possessed. Very soon, he would enter into the world of politics. Jinnah's first entry was in 1906 with initiation into Indian National Congress. Till the mid-1920s, Jinnah, along with Mohandas Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, the two most prominent leaders of the Hindu-dominated Congress party, believed that the best way to rid India of its colonial masters was through building and spreading a united Hindu-Muslim front. He spent the early half of his political career around the time of the First World War determined to bring the Muslim League and Congress party together, and was hailed as the ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity, a position he would later vehemently oppose. Later, their relationship would become so poisoned that it was a Herculean task to persuade them even to sit in the same room. During 1916, Jinnah would fall in love with one of Bombay's prettiest girls, often referred to as the flower of Bombay, Ratanbai Petit. Rati herself worshipped Jinnah and against all opposition converted to Islam and married Jinnah on April 19, 1918. However, this happy union ended in great tragedy for Jinnah about a decade later with Rati's passing, which devastated Jinnah. On Rati's death, seeing Jinnah weep at her grave, Chagla said, "That was the only time when I found Jinnah betraying some shadow of human weakness." Jinnah would throw himself head-on into the struggle for independence. However, Jinnah would get disillusioned with politics and subsequently move to England for a few years. Amongst other leaders, Liaquat Ali Khan and his Begum urged Jinnah to return from his self-imposed exile. "You must come back. The people need you. You alone can put new life into the League and save it." Jinnah's loyalty to the homeland and Muslim cause compelled him to return to British India in 1934. In 1937, the Congress Party dominated the British-held elections in India. In 1938, in an address to the United States of America, Jinnah reiterated,
Hindu India and Muslim India must be separated because the two nations are entirely distinct and different, and in some matters antagonistic to each other. Let me tell you some of the differences. We differ in our history, culture, language, architecture, music, laws, jurisprudence, calendar, and our entire social fabric and code of life. One India is impossible realization. It will inevitably mean that the Muslim will be transferred from the domination of the British to the caste Hindu rule, a position that Muslim will never accept.
Till 1939, the Congress ruled India in such a divisive and discriminatory manner that convinced Jinnah that there would never be an even and fair playing field for the Muslims in a united, independent India. This thought resulted in the Lahore Resolution on March 23, 1940, in which a separate homeland for the Muslims was demanded, a thought that the great philosopher and poet and Jinnah's friend Allama Muhammad Iqbal had first proposed in his 1930 address in Allahabad. In March 1947, a German aristocrat with close links to the British royal family, Lord Louis Mountbatten, flew into Delhi as Britain's final viceroy with the mandate to hand over power and oversee British withdrawal at the earliest. The two world wars had weakened the once omnipotent empire, Several meetings later, he was quick to realize that though he could try every trick in the book, he could not shake Jinnah's resolve and consuming determination to create Pakistan. In his mind, Jinnah was impervious to any negotiation. It was in fact this obstinacy and fervor to pursue what he so wholeheartedly believed that made the nation-state of Pakistan a reality from just a dream. The first of many religious massacres began in Calcutta in 1946. As riots spread across the country and the number of casualties rose, those in the Congress party who had initially opposed partition realized that it may indeed be the only way to rid themselves of Jinnah and his menace of a Muslim League. The British by this time had lost any exercisable control and were looking to make a hasty exit. British Prime Minister Clement Attlee on February 20, 1947 announced to the Parliament that British rule would end on a date not later than June 1948. However, just 6 months later, under the haste of Lord Mountbatten, the two nation-states of Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority East and West Pakistan were born on 14th August 1947.
Citizens of Pakistan, it is with feelings of greatest happiness and emotion that I send you my greeting. It is the birthday of the independent and sovereign state of Pakistan. It marks the fulfillment of the destiny of the Muslim nation, which has made great sacrifices in the past few years to have its homeland.
By 1948, as the largest migration in history drew to a close, more than 15 million people had been uprooted, and between 1 and 2 million people were dead.
The systematic massacre of defenseless and innocent people puts to shame even the most fearless atrocities committed by the worst tyrants known to history. We have been the victim of deep-laid and well-planned conspiracy, executed with utter disregard of the elementary principles of honesty, chivalry, and honor.
Gangs took to villages, setting them ablaze, butchering men, women and children alike, raping the young girls, cutting off breasts of pregnant women and hacking off their babies from the womb, and roasting infants on spits. The British soldiers and journalists who had witnessed the Holocaust and Nazi brutality described the scenes of partition as far worse. There were mass suicides and beheadings of women, orchestrated and undertaken often by the hands of their own husbands, fathers and brothers to save them from the horrific atrocities of rape. Nisid Hajari in Midnight's Furies wrote, "Foot caravans of destitute refugees fleeing the violence stretched for 50 miles and more. As the peasants trudged along warily, mounted guerrillas burst out of the tall crops that lined the road and culled them like sheep. Special refugee trains, filled to bursting when they set out, suffered repeated ambushes along the way. All too often they crossed the border in funeral silence, blood seeping from under their carriage doors." This bloodbath would continue post-partition and would leave Jinnah extremely saddened. For him, partition had not been about the spilling of blood. Rather, he had thought of Pakistan and India becoming neighbors just like USA and Canada. Alas, both nations are still very far away from this. Most of the Congress leadership had believed that Pakistan would collapse very soon and return to India. However, Jinnah and his followers would prove them utterly wrong.
पाकिस्तान हासिल करने के लिए हमने बहुत कुर्बानी की है, मगर हमारे दुश्मन ये चाहते हैं कि पाकिस्तान पैदा होते ही गायब हो जाए। हमें जो दुख दिया गया है उसका मिसाल तारीख में नहीं मिलता, मगर हमें पाकिस्तान को कायम रखने के लिए अभी और कुर्बानी करना होगी।
On 15th August 1947, Jinnah was sworn in as the first Governor General of Pakistan. While being responsible for the creation of the world's largest country for Muslims was incredible enough, what was even more remarkable was that he not only managed the influx of millions of refugees, but also managed to set up government machinery in the shortest time possible. Complete with the Constituent Assembly, State Bank, and military with the most meager of resources in the most trying of times. On his first presidential address to the Constituent Assembly, Jinnah said,
Life and the property and the religious belief should be fully protected by the state at any cost. And I'm sure with your support and cooperation, I'm looking forward to making Pakistan as one of the greatest nations of the world.
Through all this, a frail Jinnah, initially unknowingly and later quietly, withered away from tuberculosis, turned to lung cancer, while still struggling to nurture his beloved child in its infancy, Pakistan. In his last days, he still worked tirelessly, touring the new nation and delivering landmark speeches.
You are made of sterling material and are second to none. Why should you also not succeed like many others, like our own forefathers? You are a nation whose history is replete with people of wonderful great character and heroism. Live up to your tradition and add to another chapter of glory.
At the very end, Jinnah would take respite in Ziyarat, a lonely Balochi hill station, prophetically meaning burial tomb. Whilst examining his fragile mere 80-pound body, his doctor, Lieutenant Colonel Elahi Baksh, had said that he had seen equally severe cases amongst the prisoners of war at Singapore. By September, Jinnah had lost both his lungs to cancer, tuberculosis and pneumonia. He returned to his home, Karachi, only to die hours after his arrival on 11th September 1948 at 10:20 p.m. Millions poured into the streets to mourn the death of their only Quaid. His estranged only child, Jinnah, came as well to together mourn with Pakistan the loss of their great father. Quaid-e-Azam was home, and he had become immortal. Few individuals significantly alter the course of history. Fewer still modify the map of the world. Hardly anyone can be credited with creating a nation state. Muhammad Ali Jinnah did all three.
That you have now carved out a territory, vast territory. It is all yours. It doesn't belong to a Punjabi or a Bengali or a Sindhi. It's yours. You got your central government where every unit and every province is represented. Therefore, if you want to build up yourself into a nation and get rid of this poison, not give up this provincialism. You are only voicing my sentiments and the sentiments of millions of Muslims when you say that Pakistan should be based on pure foundation of social justice and Islamic socialism, not otherism. Brotherhood, equality, fraternity of man, these are all the basic points of our religion, culture and civilization. And we fought for Pakistan because there was danger of denial of these human rights in this subcontinent. After all, the story of Pakistan's struggle and its achievement is the very story